On the railway, a row of buttons suddenly appeared. Under the crushing of the train wheels, these buttons were continuously pressed down and then rebounded. Even when the workers saw it, they stepped on it with both feet. Its name is speed reduction peak, and its main function is to help the carriage slow down. Because the place where this speed reduction peak is installed is where the train carriages are reorganized. Each carriage needs to be connected to different locomotives according to the planned route. The carriage does not have a braking function, so it can only find a way to slow down on the track. Therefore, this speed reduction peak was invented, mainly including sliding cylinders and vertical walls. After the wheel presses on the speed reduction peak, it will create a reverse force for the wheel. Although the force is very small, the quantity is enough, helping the carriage gradually slow down and finally stop. And the reason why the workers step on it is to check its reboundability. Imagine if one gets stuck, the wheel cannot be pressed down. The consequences are unimaginable. Not only that, the carriage not only has no brakes but also has no power and needs peripheral force to push it to move. Therefore, people have invented a transmission machine, which is a kind of yellow iron plate installed inside the track. Running under the powerless carriage, the wheel itself will push the carriage wheel to move. Finally, there will be a speed reduction peak to help brake, thus completing the coupling of the carriage. Do you find this device interesting? This is an image of a steel coil being released. The worker is cutting with a welding machine, aiming at the binding wire and spraying out high-speed flames. The moment the binding wire is cut, the steel coil has a rebound effect. The steel coil, which was initially tightly clamped, is suddenly released. This is the first step in dismantling the old steel coil. Because these steel coils have rusted and cannot be used normally, they need to be released first and then processed in parts. You need to know that the weight of the steel coil can reach more than 30 tons. It can easily crush a small car. To process metal materials of such a large weight, it needs to be decomposed first. And the first step is to open this steel coil. The worker uses a cranny to lift the steel coil, then places it on the winding shaft. At this point, the fan-shaped plate on the winding shaft will expand due to the hydraulic motor until it sticks tightly to the steel coil. After fixing the steel coil to prevent the steel coil from being scattered like the beginning of the video, it needs to be fixed with a few more devices. And after fixing, it starts to open the steel coil. The steel coil is not flat at this time. It needs to go into the flattening device to flatten it first. After going through many flattening winding shafts, the steel coil will come to the cutting knife very flat. The cutting knife will continuously cut the steel coil according to the system settings. In this way, the original steel coil with a very large weight has been decomposed into hundreds of steel pieces. The subsequent processing work has also become much simpler. Have you ever worked in a steel factory? In the blink of an eye, a pine tree was tightly bound. This is the miraculous Christmas tree packaging machine. As Christmas approaches, workers have begun the tense task of packaging Christmas trees. To increase packaging efficiency and reduce transportation costs, this Christmas tree packaging machine was invented. It's very simple to use. Just control the circle at the bottom of the machine to hug the base of the Christmas tree. The internal slider will pull the thin wire to rotate in a circle, continuously winding and moving upwards. The original conical Christmas tree has been tied into a cylindrical shape. Next, instead of using a specialized tree digging machine, 4 crescent-shaped shovels surround the Christmas tree. Designate the tree root and dig down. When the 4 crescent-shaped shovels close, the Christmas tree can be pulled out without any damage. After reducing the size of the Christmas tree, a vehicle can transport more Christmas trees. In addition, there is another type of packaging machine. Its packaging quality is better. Initially, workers will drive the vibrating machine to the Christmas tree, shake the Christmas tree quickly, and drop all the debris on it. Next, they will plug the solid Christmas tree into this round barrel-shaped machine. As the continuous chain pulls out, the Christmas tree will also be tied with thin wire. However, thin wire is not the only way to tie. When lifting the Christmas tree from this side of the round barrel and inserting it when it comes out from the other side, the Christmas tree has been put on a wire mesh. This can effectively prevent the branches from falling off during transportation. It's really simple, isn't it? After the mechanical arm grabs the wild grass on the road, it spins a few rounds like having a meal. All the wild grass is rolled up, making cleaning very easy. Have you ever seen a mechanical arm that can spin like this? There are a total of 5 fingers on the arm. They are arranged in a biting shape and distribution. Combined with the hydraulic steering device, it can make it freely rotate 360 degrees. It should be known that the wild grass floating on the pond has the property of winding around. The usual cleaning machine passing over the lake surface can only rely on the roll to collect the wild grass. When it reaches the shore, then lift the roll to effectively pull out the wild grass along with the roots. The cleaning effect is very good. wood, it's just that the cleaning speed is too slow. Of course, because it has excellent gripping force, it can also be used to grab wood. To meet the needs of the logging industry, the designer has made a new upgrade on the basis of the arm, added wheels to the arm, and added a saw blade on one side. Thus, after the mechanical arm grabs the tree root, the saw blade below will cut off the large tree, change direction to bring the large tree over, rely on the wheels to glide over the tree, all the branches will be removed. Next, turn back to cut the tree into sections. Cut section by section. A large tree will be divided into sections like this. How about that? Isn't this very interesting? When the button is pressed, a large amount of water is sprayed from one side of the aircraft. The instant force makes the aircraft shake. This is an image of the MAF Aviation firefighting system during testing. When a forest fire occurs, the transport aircraft equipped with MAF will arrive at the scene. After pressing the button, it can spray 11,000 liters of water within 5 seconds, quickly forming a firefighting strip 400 meters long and 18 meters wide. You need to know that the performance of traditional firefighting aircraft is also very high. After filling up with water, it can dump all the water at once. However, the release of water happens very quickly, but the collection of water is very slow, so a large fire cannot be extinguished at once. When the aircraft is full of water again, the fire spreads again, so the firefighting efficiency is not high. But MAF has reduced this disadvantage. It doesn't need to go back and forth to fetch water, but to change the water bullet, which is the large barrel loaded inside. This large barrel can hold 11,000 liters of water at a time. After being lifted by a special tractor, it can directly dock with the cargo floor of the transport aircraft. Push the large barrel in. After connecting with the water pipe on one side of the aircraft can take off to fight the fire. The whole process only takes 8 minutes. Plus the time to remove the empty barrel, the process of changing the water bullet only takes more than 10 minutes. It not only improves the firefighting efficiency, but also shortens the firefighting time. Do you think this technology is great? This machine is so powerful that it can't be pulled back. It's a homemade snowmobile. There's no complex technology, just pure, simple, and powerful strength. The engine of the motorcycle is equipped on 2 car tires. Install a snowboard in front. Twist the throttle to drive the tires to spin. A motorcycle that can run fast on snow was born. If you feel this design is not stable, then replace it with a design with 2 snowboards and 1 tire. 2 snowboards can provide enough stability. In addition, there is a type of robot towing machine, which is a robot with a conveyor belt 1 meter long and 30 centimeter wide. Tie a bathtub-shaped snow sliding device behind it. People sit inside. The conveyor belt design can cope with thick snow. There is no slipping phenomenon. The operating principle is like a dog pulling a sled, pulling you to run fast on the snow. Not only that, they also made some interesting toys to pull behind. After the snow falls, children fix 2 pieces of plastic on their small feet, then find a snow hill, can slide far away. This is the snow sliding feet specially designed for children. Wear it to make your feet become snow sliding feet. Of course, this thing needs some time to practice. At first, you may fall face down on the ground, but then you will be proficient in skiing. Do you find these homemade machines interesting? Insert a conduit through the ground and into the earth, then quickly transport foam. The expanding foam will quickly fill the gaps underground, raising the originally sunken ground. This is a technique that can solve the problem of subsidence without having to dig up the ground, and the foam here is polyurethane foam filler. This powder-like material, when exposed to air, will quickly expand. When it encounters water, it will harden, ultimately forming a solid that is resistant to pressure. The construction process is very simple. After finding the sunken ground, first drill a hole with a drill bit. If the thickness of the concrete road surface is very solid, just insert the conduit directly into the hole. The polyurethane foam transported down will automatically lift the light ground while expanding. Conversely, if the weight of the ground is too large, first use a jack or flat crane to adjust the sunken ground to an appropriate height. Then insert the conduit and proceed with the filling work. What is worth mentioning is that this foam can be said to fill any gap it sees, not skipping small gaps. The more water it encounters, the faster it hardens. Because of its good viscosity and hardening effect, many farm owners, when building fences, will use this material to fix wooden stakes. Just a few seconds can firmly fix the wooden stake in place. Even when hit with a hammer, it cannot be shaken. Do you find this technology useful? When hearing a clunk sound, the aircraft engine is halted by two large steel plates with force so powerful that it could crack the head of a mannequin doll. This is the aircraft's secondary braking system, known as the reverse thrust system. This engine blockage operation often occurs when the aircraft is landing in rainy or snowy weather. The purpose is quite simple. The ground is too slippery, and relying solely on the aircraft's braking system is not sufficient. At that moment, the two steel plates mounted outside the engine close together, blocking the initial airflow from the engine from flowing backward and redirecting it forward, thereby counteracting the thrust and shortening the braking distance. However, this system has become somewhat outdated at the present time. Today, a similar system is more commonly used. This is the liquid explosive reverse thrust braking system, which is currently popular. It operates on the same principle of deceleration as the reverse thrust braking system, but in a different way. After the device is activated, the tube moves on the engine moving backwards, exposing the inner bypass tube inside the engine. The rear door of the bypass tube also closes, blocking the airflow created by the fan blades from spilling out backwards and directing it to spill out forward in the bypass tube, thereby creating reverse thrust. The deceleration effect is very good, but there is one limitation. It must be turned off when the aircraft decelerates to a certain speed, because the reverse airflow can lift up sand particles on the runway and be sucked into the engine, causing erosion of the fan blades. Next time you fly, try observing if this is indeed the case. The quickly deployed large net has become an effective tool in capturing fleeing criminals. Once ensnared, it's difficult to escape in a short time. Mounted on unmanned aerial vehicles, it can even perform aerial captures. Compared to a taser gun that emits electrical currents, the net gun seems somewhat more humane. Simply relying on the large net to securely hold the target without causing additional harm, it restricts the target's mobility. When not in use, its emitter resembles a flashlight. Each shot requires replacing the compression tube at the tail. After pressing the fire button, the compression tube instantly propels the net outwards. The maximum effective shooting range can reach up to 10 meters, and there's no need to worry about the net not ensnaring the target because the designers have already considered this issue. Thus, they added auxiliary weights around the large net. Upon firing, the auxiliary weights will pull the corners of the net outward. It only takes 1.5 seconds to fully deploy. After completely covering the target with the largest area, the auxiliary weights quickly sink down, tightly enveloping the target. If this device fails, then you must resort to the taser gun. After upgrading, the taser gun can continuously fire. Once hitting the target, it releases high voltage electric currents, incapacitating the nervous system, causing the target to lose its ability to move quickly. So, which device do you think is more effective? Using an electric saw to cut plaster doesn't pose any risk of self-harm. In fact, there's no risk whatsoever. Even when the electric saw comes into direct contact with the skin, it's perfectly fine. Does this sound absurd? Because on steel surfaces, the electric saw even leaves cutting marks. Not to mention human skin, but even a balloon can't be cut. This is the miraculous plaster-cutting electric saw. Unlike traditional electric saws, it doesn't rotate. Instead, it moves back and forth. Through a slow lens, you can see the teeth on the surface, not rotating to cut, but moving back and forth with high frequency and small spacing between cuts. When pressing the electric saw onto hard plaster, the teeth can cut quickly. But when encountering a deflated balloon or insufficiently stretched skin, they can't cause any harm. Because the surface is too soft, with good elasticity, the teeth can only rub back and forth. At this point, just inflating the balloon a bit more allows it to be cut through. Additionally, using a marker pen to mark on the surface of the saw blade. Without a slow lens, you can still observe its operating principle. After starting the electric saw, the marker mark doesn't rotate, but due to the rapid back and forth motion, it creates small residual images. That's the principle of the electric saw that can only cut plaster without harming the skin. However, there actually is a type of electric saw that can cut various types of wood without harming the human body. Testing it with a sausage instead of a human hand, when these two objects are close, the rapidly rotating saw blade immediately stops and retracts into the machine, which helps protect one's safety. How about that? Isn't it miraculous?